In the world of supermodels, only the strong survive, and that should come as no surprise because modeling is a very tough, sometimes cruel business, and the roller coaster nature of this life in the fast lane is often too much for most girls to take. Back in the late 70s and early 80s, a remarkable beauty from Philadelphia by the name of Gia was making big waves as a top-paid cover girl. The times were crazy, and by 1986, at the age of only 26, Gia was on welfare and dying of AIDS. Her tragic story is the subject of a new book entitled Thing of Beauty.
She was absolutely amazing. Gia always wanted to be an actress, and she really turned it on in front of the camera, really acted in front of the camera. She was absolutely amazing.
Her personality came through. She wasn't just a mannequin. It was more, I think, it was a bit of a change in more of a human being as opposed to somebody who just shows the clothes.
She never wanted to be an actor. She never wanted to be an actor. She was just having fun.
When you saw her, you knew the good looks. There was a certain kind of not superficial good looks. You felt something else was there. She was interesting looking and accessible somehow.
It was a time when anything could happen, and where it would be more usual for a model to sort of move up slowly, do, you know, crummy jobs, better jobs, and then move up. You know, a model could go, like Gia did, from 0 to 100, where she was 1 minute trying to get her first job, and then her second job was doing Bloomingdale's ads with Arthur Elgort, and 2 weeks later she was being booked by Italian Bazaar to do the collections in Rome and then the collections in Paris with all the top photographers.
Because there was no dues-paying process for Gia, fame came fast and furious. She wasn't prepared to handle it and soon found herself consumed by a world of kinky sex, hard drugs, and superficial values. By 1980, she was making top wages, $100,000 a year. But by then, she had also become a heroin addict.
I think that one thing is clear, that it was her bad luck that heroin became a fashionable drug in the late 70s. Because Gia did a lot of Quaaludes when it was Quaalude time, and she did a lot of cocaine when it was cocaine time. Heroin was a perfect drug for her personality. It's a very isolating drug. Drug abuse with heroin is different than drug abuse with these other kinds of drugs. Gia wasn't the only person who was using heroin in New York, and the fact that she died from it doesn't prove that she was that much more self-destructive than anybody else.
Just after her 20th birthday in 1980, Gia traveled to the Caribbean for this Vogue spread with photographer Francesco Scavullo and fashion editor Polly Mellon. It was on this trip that her lesbian tendencies became a real problem and her hard drug use revealed. Still, the shoot was a success. But later that year, there was another shoot with the same team, and the resulting photos had to be airbrushed. According to Polly Mellon, track marks were visible on Gia's arms.
That's great, like that. Hold on. Good, beautiful like that.
Scavullo, one of Gia's most ardent admirers and biggest supporters, is quoted heavily in Stephen Fried's book. Yet now he seems to have problems with it, perhaps a result of his devotion to Gia.
She was the most special model I've ever worked with in my life, and the most divine girl. I really don't like that book because it's full of lies and I mean, there was never any track marks on her arm. I have a cellar full of chromes, which I'll let you look at a magnifying glass, and there was never any blood running out of her track marks. I mean, Polly Mellon is divine, but she could see the stigmata. She's so dramatic. But I think all these things that have been said about her are not all exaggerated and untrue. And the book is a fake.
I think Scavullo knows that there's nothing in this book that isn't accurate. I think that some of it is unsettling to him. He was very clear with me about how difficult it was to deal with the fact that she had died. And so it doesn't surprise me that he is troubled, that he would be troubled by the book. I don't think he probably really means that he thinks that there are things in it that aren't true. I think that it's just not the way he wants to remember her.
Despite several attempts at rehabilitation, Gia's downward spiral continued, and soon she became just too erratic for most photographers to deal with.
The last time I worked with Gia, she showed up 3 hours late on the set, and she had a knife, and she pulled a knife on the editor, and it was really sad. Now, she wasn't going to use it, it was just for effect, but it was very sad, the downhill and downfall of Gia, because here was a brilliant person that was, I guess, too early on the scene.
At the end of her life, Gia was penniless. She succumbed to AIDS in 1986, probably the result of needle use.
She was a victim of timing, I think, really, because the world of modeling is already one thing. That's not easy to handle, I would think. And the world at that moment in time, which became then drug-filled and all kinds of, I think that everything was probably too much. That was a nifty young woman.